What is the place of infrastructure as a service in Web 3.0? Will Ethereum-driven DeFi projects continue to drive congestion? And is ETH2 ready? Welcome to Word on the Block, the series that takes a deeper dive into blockchain and the emerging technologies that shape our world at the intersection of business, politics, and economy. It's what we cover right here on Forkast.News. I'm Forkast Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Well, in the second quarter of this year, it was reported that Ethereum surpassed Bitcoin to become the most popular blockchain in the world. And Ethereum certainly wants to fuel and is already fueling the world computer, Web 3.0 at least. One of the firms helping projects on-ramp onto Ethereum is Infura, which recently celebrated its 4th birthday to Ethereum's 5th birthday. And now the consensus-owned subsidiary is also the infrastructure behind a significant chunk of the DeFi craze. Question is, where is it taking us? What's the next stage of growth for not only DeFi, but more broadly for blockchain? Joining us right now is an insider himself at Infura. He's GM and head of product of Infura, Michael Gotze. Michael, it's great to welcome you to the show.
Thanks, Angie. Super happy to be here.
All right. Okay. So Infura started about 4 years ago. Did you imagine that this is where we would be right now at the cusp of one of the biggest and for many kind of confusing and inexplicable growth of DeFi?
Yeah, I think when we set up Infura, we really thought of this as how do we make it as easy as possible to build on this technology? And that meant that there were going to be so many possibilities of what people could do, and the just sheer breadth of applications and different types of devices that would end up using this. And so I think we're super happy to see this DeFi exploding. We were super happy to see the crypto collectibles explode at the end of 2017. And I think we're going to see a ton more explosions going forward. I don't think it's just DeFi. I don't think it's just crypto collectibles. I think we are just scratching the surface of the potential of this technology, and I think we have a long road ahead.
All right, for those just understanding this right now, what is the role of infrastructure as a service, especially in blockchain? What does it allow companies and firms to do?
Yeah, it's so Infura specifically, and infrastructure inside of the Web3 space is basically, in order to communicate, in order to have an application on these networks, you have to have a connection to those networks. That connection is usually powered through what people call a node or a client. And that's just simply a server or a computer or a device running the software that connects to the network. And so what Infura does is we give people a super easy to use API where they can just plug that into their application, whether it's an IoT device, a mobile device, a server, an AWS virtual server, whatever it is, you can plug into Infura and start developing on blockchain and Ethereum and IPFS immediately.
So in the old days, I guess it would be like a DOS or an operating system that allows just a more general community of developers to tap into the World Wide Web.
Kind of, yeah. I think maybe a better way to look at it is the way that developers were utilizing cloud, the way that developers utilize cloud right now.
Okay.
This is the new, this is going to be the next network layer that people are really passionate and motivated to build on top of.
That motivation is based in opportunity and a lot of projects, including FILECOIN. FILECOIN mainnet, as we know, has just launched. And I understand that Infura is now opening up support for developers to build FILECOIN-based apps. What's the goal here?
Yeah, so we worked really closely with the Protocol Labs team to welcome FILECOIN to the Infura suite. I think we've been big supporters of IPFS for a long time, probably one of the earliest and still a very big and significant portion of our platform. And so, when in building out our IPFS support, we've maintained and fostered this really awesome relationship with the Protocol Labs team. And when FILECOIN started to come on, we were like, okay, all right, we need to be prepared for this. This is a next big development from a team and a company that we really trust and respect. And so there's two primary layers of the FILECOIN network, and that's really the blockchain-based network layer, and then the storage-based much more similar to IPFS layer. And the blockchain layer is what validates the storage and allows you to make these decentralized storage deals with people who offer decentralized access to their storage, which is a really, really interesting new way to access storage for a developer or an application. And we wanted to be at the forefront of that with our friends and colleagues at the Protocol Labs team. And so right now what we're offering is the FILECOIN network layer. So it's very similar to our access to Ethereum, but it gives you access to the blockchain layer of the FILECOIN network. So if you want to check markets and understand what's going on with the FILECOIN currency that's involved in the network, you can use our API. And we're super excited, and I think we're going to be building out use cases for it as it matures, and working really closely with Protocol Labs on that.
So you've expanded beyond Ethereum. You're now including FILECOIN. Are there other potential protocols that you could expand to at some point, and what would they be?
Absolutely, yeah. I think ETH2, ETH2 to us is a new protocol in a lot of ways, and because of the amount of work and the complexity of that offering and that network change, to us, in order to provide the operational quality that our users demand from us, that's an entirely new protocol for us. And so ETH2 is going to be a big new part of the Infura platform in the future. But we're not only are we talking to, but we are keeping our eyes on every single major protocol developer out there. We have conversations constantly with people all across the ecosystem. There are so many exciting projects out there, and I think we are driven to provide what developers are demanding, and that's where we'll start. So when our users start saying, hey, we want this, that's when we'll start really getting serious about building that out.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the critical question that a lot of us ask, even philosophically, that there's just such demand for Ethereum to fuel projects. But as we know, there's just myriad protocols out there in the decentralized ecosystem. But at some point, it's almost like that Ethereum's dominance is creating in of itself a centralized, portal or even a monopoly. It's just, it's in your view, do you think that Ethereum's dominance is ultimately a weakness for the ecosystem, or what needs to happen here?
I don't know if I would necessarily consider it dominance. I think, like I said earlier, I think we're just really early still. And I think that what is really awesome about Ethereum and what it provides for this entire movement of trying to build towards more decentralized systems and applications is it is solving so many of the hard problems that people are going to have to solve in order to integrate these types of new paradigms into their applications. And so I think I think we need to celebrate the fact that like we have all these people who are kind of working to solve and working to prove out and all of these different use cases that have potential in these in this ecosystem. And so I think it will always have a place as like a strong foundation for where, you know, some very high degree of technical proficiency has been dumped into it. And so I think like the best way to look at it is as a foundation, and there's just going to be so much stuff that builds up off of it and around it and next to it. And I think we're still super early.
It's the biggest house on the block at the moment, but there are other houses
yeah,
that are being built right around it, and we're seeing it every day. But for those who are just starting to understand this DeFi craze, we went from $500 million in market cap, in market value last year. We're surpassing 11 billion in less than a year. How has Infura created that kind of infrastructure on-ramp to really kind of have developers and protocols kind of create their presence in DeFi?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we haven't targeted DeFi specifically. We have targeted there's a fundamental connection that you have to make to these networks, and any application utilizing Ethereum can work on top of Infura. And so but I think too, what we had to do to prepare for DeFi was really kind of in our DNA. We have a ton of super high talented engineers and people on the Infura team who have basically spent their careers working on extremely complex and extremely critical software systems. And so, you know, to us, if we're not ready for that, we're not doing our jobs. And if we're not up all the time and there for people when they need us, then you know, we're ultimately betraying the trust of our users, and that's you know, that to us is the ultimate failure. So so yeah, so I think, you know, when CryptoKitties had that big burst in 2017, you know, we were there to help them, and that was before we even had a paid business model. That was just we were so dedicated to seeing this ecosystem grow that you know, making sure that things like those continued to be healthy and resilient as a network and as a whole, and we take the exact same stance on DeFi. We just want
CryptoKitties, yeah, I mean, CryptoKitties was a great example of the overall traffic and the demand of people who were just caught up in you know, these very unique digital signatures, CryptoKitties craze, and it really clogged the entire system. We're kind of seeing that right now in DeFi. Ethereum gas prices have surged on DeFi demand. So, you know, having been there in 2017, helping to unclog the pipes, if you will, how do you support the massive traffic today with DeFi?
Yeah, so, you know, I guess there's two sides of that. There's the way that we look at it, at least, is there's the read and then there's the write side of that. And so there's applications have to consume a ton of data from the network. You know, what's going on with this user's contract, what's going on with this address and this person's interactions versus this person's interactions. So they're having to read a ton of data from the network. And we are making constant improvements to how that's done and the simplicity around it and the quality of service around that. And so from that side, our system scales phenomenal and can handle far more than what's going on the network right now, confidently. And so the right side of it is the really complicated part where a ton of effort is being put into obviously layer 2 solutions, ETH2, being a big target, it being increasing transaction throughput and solving some of the problems behind gas and that. But I think what you're going to see is developers and infrastructure providers are going to start finding ways to be very creative about how to solve these problems. And that will likely range all across the kind of what needs to be on the blockchain decision. One of the earliest conversations I had in this ecosystem was what needs to be on chain. And I still think people are really trying to answer that question. And so I think people are going to start going, okay, well, maybe I don't need to write this thing to the chain for my application's logic to work the same way it does. And then that way I don't have to compete with this DeFi congestion necessarily. But I think beyond that, we're working with a number of companies, we're working with a number of developers to build some really innovative solutions to those problems.
One of those projects is Uniswap, which currently headlines DeFi's total value, dominates about 25% of the market at the moment. You've had first row tickets to Uniswap's climb. I'm curious how you saw the DeFi boom and what it looked like from the inside.
Yeah, it was business as usual for us. Uniswap is early trusted user of Infura. My hat's off to them. They are super efficient with how they use our service. And so they're doing a lot of the work on their side to be smart about what things they have to read, what things they have to write. And we love having them as a customer because they test our system. But they also are extremely talented professional engineers who are being super smart about how to use our system. So they actually teach, our users about how to be a better user in some ways. And so as far as, all of that excitement, a month ago or 6 weeks ago, where things really started to spike, we may, some auto scaling kind of might have kicked in, but for the most part, we had no service disruption. We had no changes in service quality. And to us, it was business as usual.
Do you find you're in a position at times to play police with who is using Infura, how they're using it? Do you have any kind of impact there or influence there?
It depends on how you think about that. If the network identifies a bad actor and we can do something to help, we will do what we can to help, but we do not shut anything down that there isn't some greater effort beyond. Like, there's no culling that we do on our side without any sort of greater network or ecosystem effort. That's been a really important cultural policy inside of Infura, is that we are the pipes. We do not get to choose what is happening over those pipes. And no different than Comcast doesn't choose what bits are flowing through their fiber. I think we see that as a responsibility to our users and to the ethos of this ecosystem, that we aren't acting as police, but we're extremely dedicated to making sure that this network is healthy. And if it's a community and ecosystem-wide effort, we definitely try to help.
The infrastructure build is super important. ETH2 is ready to launch in the next couple of months. We're in phase 0 right now. Does this change the equation? And how does it create create a difference that everyone's expecting to see in terms of speed?
Phase 0 is, I think, really good to think about phase 0 as still a testing phase. I think it's going to be, when developers start ramping on to ETH2 is still going to be in the later phases. The earlier phases are really to verify and validate that the staking architecture works and that the network can function inside of this new consensus algorithm. And so you're going to see a lot of validators and staking services and stuff like that come online that kind of help people participate in that layer of the new network. But Infura, like I've said before, I mean, we are here for developers. And so for us, we are definitely going to have an ETH2 service. We have an ETH2 service up right now for access to the test nets. It's specifically the beacon chain layer. And so it's actually, we're taking a very similar approach to ETH2 that we were taking to FILECOIN. And that's, we want to get as many people into it, and we want to start understanding how are people going to use this. And then we can build our service better around the pieces that are most important to the users that are benefiting from that infrastructure.
You're probably sitting on one of the most integral focus groups as a result of that thinking right now in emerging technologies. You also said at the beginning of our conversation, which is this is only the beginning. We started with, in the very beginnings, and now we're fast forwarded to DeFi. People feel like blockchain has created efficiencies across industries. It's changed business logic. It's opened up business opportunity. But if it's only the beginning, where, from an insider point of view, knowing what you can build, what developers can build based on the tools and the equipment that you've provided them, what can we see for the everyman, for the every business in the future? What are you seeing in your crystal ball right now?
I love thinking about this. There's so many possibilities. So I come from a previous life of making video games. And so I'm super interested in all of the efforts around embedding these blockchain systems into video games and trying to make maybe really interesting reputation systems or anti-harassment and anti-toxicity systems, which are a huge issue in modern video games, especially modern multiplayer video games. And so I would love to see some of this technology used to improve those things that I care a lot about from the video game industry. But I think and people are already investing a lot of money into that, and there's some traction, and I think we're going to see that build and build. But I think the landscape of what can be done with this technology is so broad, and that's what's so exciting about it. So I mean, there's some amazing efforts being put into healthcare initiatives. There's some amazing efforts being put into, banking the unbanked. There's, that's what keeps me motivated. Is there's so many possibilities, and I think we see it as such an honor to kind of provide people with the tools to be able to actually see through all of those possibilities.
Well, Michael, that's the first time I heard of technology being used to restore civility to online behavior. And I think we need more of that. So amen to that. Look, technology is only as good as the users and the developers. We know this to be true. And it was great to hear from you as head of product for Infura, and how you really see that, and just get a glimpse at what the future may hold. Michael Gotze, thank you so much for joining us on Word on the Block today.
Thank you, Angie. Very, very fun to be in this conversation with you.
Me too. And thank you, everyone. It was great fun for all of you to join us on this conversation as well. And I thank you for it. I'm Angie Lau, Forkast.News Editor-in-Chief. And thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Word on the Block. We'll see you next time. If you like that, come back for more. All you have to do is click like, always comment, we love that, and subscribe. And don't forget to watch the next one.